Hello YouTube, HP Zeta here today, and today I'm here with Apollo, who is the co-host of our new podcast. What we're going to be doing today is we're just going to introduce ourselves, share a bit of memories, tell you about the podcast. I just think of this as an appetizer to whet your palate for the podcast. So, Apollo, how are you doing?
Hey, hello HP. I'm doing quite fine. Thank you. What about you?
I'm doing well. It was quite an interesting day today, but we're all here and we're all ready. Even though we had some technical difficulties setting this up, but it's a good thing that we're doing some testing in advance.
Yeah, definitely. The depths we had to go into.
With the things we do for a good entertainment.
Well, entertainment for us mostly, I would say.
Yeah, this is all going to be all about having fun more than anything else. It's not going to be an overly serious podcast or anything like that.
I mean, if you remember, the first time we had the idea to do a shared podcast was when you and I have been geeking out all the time about all this retro team stuff, what it means to us, our past in retro gaming, and we more than on one occasion said, hey, we could have recorded this and people might have even enjoyed listening in. So I guess that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, that's more or less it. And for those that don't know, we've been talking for it's been about 2 years, 3 years. And every time we have like a voice call, we sit there for about an hour and a half, just talking about retro stuff and memories and things that we are nostalgic about and things we love. And it's absolutely awesome. So why not share it?
Definitely.
So tell me a bit about yourself. What is your retro background and gaming memories?
Well, to go right back to the beginning, I think the first machine I ever played with was one of the old Pong consoles. And then I remember I also must have played games on an Atari 2600 before I got my first own console, which was a Sega Master System. And the Sega Master System is a console that I really hold dear because my grandfather used to help me with the games and I was quite proud of my achievements there. And later on, I got a Game Boy, the original DMG-01. I still have it in working condition. I'm pretty proud on that. Then I had my first home computer, which was an Amiga 500. Such a lovely, awesome machine, I tell you. And I don't need to tell you, obviously. So eventually, at some point when, Commodore went bankrupt and the games just got better on PC, I switched to a 368 and 386, then a 486. And my current console that I play on is a Switch, and I'm still a PC gamer with dabbling in VR and simulations and all that. So a pretty broad spectrum, actually.
Yeah, which is that's what I enjoy with our chat so much because we've got such different viewpoints and experiences and things. Just for those that haven't already noticed, we're not in the same country, so this is actually an international podcast officially. But that's what's so great about this is the interactions and the fact that we're from completely different backgrounds in that. So for those that don't know my history, basically I've mostly been a PC gamer. So I started off with 286 that my father bought home one day. No sound card, PC speaker. We used to play games like Altron and Prince of Persia on there. And I thought that was like the best one can get until we kind of got a sound card and you played Prince of Persia for the first time. You heard one of those tiles crack on the floor and it just blew you away. And I've basically mostly had PCs. We've always upgraded them. That's the one thing I can say that my father has done for me is he's always made sure that I've got a nice upgraded PC. So 286, 386, Pentium 1 and up. I've also had a few gaming consoles, as you guys know already, like Sega Mega Drive. And I never had a Master System. I had an uncle that had a Master System. And we played Alex Kidd at his house and it was spectacular. Did I have a DMG as well, but only had 2 games for that. So yeah, we've basically got completely different backgrounds, and we vary in what we conceive as retro nostalgia quite a bit, and I think that's what's going to make this so interesting.
Yeah, we also have a very different approach to retro gaming, I would say. I'm openly jealous of your extensive collection of machines and actual retro hardware. While I guess from how long ago was it? 10 years when I got my first Amiga emulator and played some of the old games I had back then again. It was such an awesome experience. So I think I'm currently more trying to recreate the old experience on modern hardware, like software emulators and FPGAs.
Yeah. But for me, what's also nice is it's not just the software emulation side of things. You also love collectibles. That's something that I've never gotten into. Like, you've got a lot of retro books, and you like quite a few of the collectibles, like little artifacts and things as well. And that's a completely different experience to what sort of stuff I collect. And for me, like you mentioned before, it's mostly for me physical consoles. I try and collect more of the consoles and repair them and refurbish them and that sort of thing. But both of us love games, so that's something we both have in common.
Yeah, I have 24 more cartridges incoming from all sorts of systems this week. So that's definitely true. And since you speak of books, I think for the retro experience, for me, a very integral part of this is now reading up on the history and context of these old machines and games. That's why I really got into collecting retro-themed books like Bitmap books, Fusion Retro books, and what other publishers are there.
Yeah, and you've shared some of those books and those the photos and things. And I think I don't want to spoil too much for our next podcast, because that's definitely going to be included in there. And so what do you enjoy most about this hobby at the moment, other than just the collecting?
I would say really reading up about the history and the nostalgia. I mean, suddenly getting nostalgia for a system that you never owned is pretty amazing. Like the Commodore 64, I never owned one of those. But when I read a book about the C64 scene in Sweden, like a lot of interviews of what the time was like back then, where people were openly advertising in magazines to swap discs, which is unthinkable today. Historical context is just so interesting. Or an article that I read about the NEC PC engine and how it never hit the Western market, but still in the UK, people were desperate to get their hands on it. So it started the whole import and repackaging business of consoles and games. That's amazing and interesting and part of actual cultural history.
Yeah, and for me, that's once again a little bit different from my side. For me, when I learn about a console, it's when I've got a broken Mega Drive here and I need to fix it. So then I'll spend hours, weeks online researching it, reading up on the history, and going through the restore process. And for me, that's where I explore is actually repairing with the physical thing with me, and that's where I get my memories and stuff from. It's just remarkable how different a person can feel about nostalgia, and how it brings people together regardless of how you feel about it.
I would like to compare it to, when you are a kid, you are just playing the games, you are not thinking about memory limitations, or in general the limitations that force the developers to design a game in a certain way and make the games look the way they looked. You just take it for intended, I would say. And think of it like a really small part of a bigger picture on a canvas. And when you are working with the old machines, cleaning them, reading up on how to repair them, the history, the context, the people, it's like you are completing the painting, which makes it a beautiful whole.
Yeah, that when it's done and you take that step back and you look at the completed process, you suddenly feel that attraction, that affection, like you mentioned before, nostalgia for a system that you've never owned. And for me, 2/3 of the things that I actually collect are machines that I've never owned, and I feel nostalgic, just like you do about the Commodore 64. I've never owned one, or the Amigas. My father used to, and that's one of the reasons why I got into this. My father used to see Amigas and all of those computers and go, it's terrible systems. You've got a PC. You don't need anything more. It's so much more superior. For instance, my nephew got a wonderful Amiga 4000 once.
Wow.
fantastic system, and it didn't work. It didn't have the Kickstart discs with it, so it couldn't boot up and things. So my father was called to have a look at it because, of course, he's a computer fundy. He got to him and he just looked at the system, switched it on, and he said, this is a piece of rubbish. You can't play anything on it. It doesn't have any games. You're not going to enjoy it. I think you guys should just throw it away. Yet today, the Amiga 4000 is one of the best systems to like game on. And also, it's one of the most expensive retro systems that you can get. If only we knew. Well, I knew. Well, if only he knew. But I guess that's why he never started to collect, because the only thing he focuses on is the present. But you also play modern games, if I'm not mistaken.
Modern games? Yeah, just yesterday I finished Gato Roboto on the Switch.
Yeah, and how did you find that? I saw it. It's got that cute mech character.
Yeah, it's a cute little Metroidvania, or Devolver Digital called it a Catroidvania, I think. A lot of companies are now catering to the retro age, so Gato Roboto does the same by only having two-tone graphics, and you can actually find up to 14 cartridges in the game in hidden areas that all give you different color palettes. So
you can change it like into an 8-bit color palette or a DMG color palette.
Yeah, in the beginning you have like black and white, and you have, I think, green on black. I mean, one of the color palettes is called urine. You can guess why.
Yeah, it's probably that yellow phosphor screens that you used to get on the IBMs.
Yes, yellow on a like very dark brown.
Yep.
But the game is fairly short. Like, you can easily finish it in 3 hours, but it's also very affordable. I think it was like $7, $5, depending on sale. So it's well worth it. And it has a cute humor. The story is nothing to phone home about, but the gameplay is really good.
That's what I like about the Devolver games. All of the games are like quite cheap, like $5, $7, or $12, and all of them always have this little quirk in it that makes it its own unique experience. And I've played a few of them myself. They really make some good games, but also that they make some real shovelware sometimes as well.
And we're not talking about Shovel Knight, right? That was a different company.
No. That Shovel Knight just shovels. He's not actual shovelware, I hope. Please don't unsubscribe, guys. It's not needed. You don't need to. It's only a joke.
I have yet to finish Shovel Knight, I have to admit. It's also a good game, but a bit harder than Gato Roboto.
Yeah, Shovel Knight, I also haven't finished it because there's so much extra content that the developer added to that thing. It's just huge. I don't think I'll ever be able to finish it.
I mean, I admit the Nintendo Switch is also one of my retro gaming systems, because Hamster Corp releases all the arcade archive releases there, like Neo Geo games and arcade games, like great old shoot 'em ups and shmoops like Pulstar, Blazing Star, fighting games. It's just fun with these old games. I mean, these coin gobbler games just work different.
Yeah, the coin gobbler game by its very nature is a game that you can play for 5 to 10 minutes, and then if you lose a life, you can put your Switch down and do something else. It's not the end of the world. And that's why I love the arcade games, especially for time wasters. And it makes sense to have that on the Switch because you can take the thing with you. And then when you have that 5 or 10 minutes, just rip it out, play a quick match of it, and then you're done. But
yeah, definitely. I have to say, when I was a teenager, my parents and I, we spent like a vacation it was like a trailer park at the beach. Mm-hmm. And I was already not very interested in the beach and getting a tan. So at the bar, they had 2 arcade machines, and at least one was a Neo Geo MVS with the beat 'em up game, the fighting game, Far East of Eden Kabuki Clash. And I would always go to the bar counter and get coins changed to play there. And, younger Spanish kids would be gathering around me and cheering me on, and I almost beat the game. It was like I had 1 pixel of health, the final boss had 1 pixel, I had no more coins, next hit would determine the match, and I lost. And well, no more coins, and the kids started beating up the poor arcade.
But that was arcade culture back then. I mean, that's all disappeared. And like the thing of the whole point of you're playing an arcade game, and the next person that wants to play puts a coin on the screen next to you, then you know he's next in line. And then if anyone walks past and they see coins on that side of the screen, it means that there's already people queuing to play. You don't get that anymore. I think that's something that we've really lost. And the whole feeling of going to a place just to play games that you can't normally play at home, we don't get that anymore.
And I mean, it's like local multiplayer, getting your name on the first place on the high score, competing locally, meeting people, getting out. I mean,
and the one token not quests, achievements, just like finishing Dead or Alive on one token with one character. I mean, that's like the ultimate goal, is finishing an arcade game with just a few coins without having any continues. We've lost all of that, unfortunately. But today we've got nostalgia and retro games, and you don't have to leave your house to play multi-thousand rand arcade cabinets anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting for Kabuki Clash to maybe, hopefully one day also being released on the Switch, because it's one of the lesser-known fighting games.
I wonder who owns the actual intellectual property for that at the moment. I hope they can actually release it. It was a good fighter. But yeah, if not, you can always emulate it.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I think we should more or less end here. We don't want to spoil our future podcast, but what I think I'm going to quickly cover is what you can expect from the podcast, the dates, and that sort of stuff. So it's going to be a once-a-month podcast. It'll always be the last week of that month, normally on a Saturday or Sunday, depends on our schedules. We will most of the time have a guest star on. The guest star will change every time. Each and every podcast will be based around a different topic, a different aspect of nostalgia, gaming, or just what we feel like that week. But like I said before, this whole thing is based on fun, so whatever we find fun, we're probably going to talk about it. And what I believe is, if we're having fun, you're going to have fun watching us. So yeah, so expect the full podcast coming out at the end of the month. I think our first one, we're going to cover emulation. We're definitely going to go a bit deeper into book collecting. And we're also going to cover some of the mini consoles. So
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it should be. I think we can do an hour and a half podcast based on that easily.
Oh yeah.
And just before I finally sign off, I just want to show you guys the new layout. You probably saw how this looks. There's going to be some changes. Let me there we go. So you'll see that there's going to be a lot of changes. We've got the logo on the side there. If there's a guest star, that logo is going to disappear. You'll see on top there, it's going to show live how many people are watching at any one time. Below me is the live chat box, and then the final feature I just want to show off for you guys is every time someone subscribes, it's going to play a little jingle and have a little animation. So I'm just going to do an example one. Let's see, chat box, alert box, there we go. And John just donated $42, and you can see you can actually type in your own text. So during the podcast, we'll be able to read that and interact, because that's what we're here for mostly, is interaction. Because we also want to hear about your stories, your experience, what you do, what you collect, and we're flexible. So I think that's more or less anything. Do you have anything more to say?
I guess not for now, because otherwise you and I could just talk for another hour and turn it into a fully fledged podcast. So let's not spoil it.
Yeah, let's not spoil it, definitely not. So that's me, HP Zeta, and
Paulo.
Until next time, cheerio.
Cheers.